Hello and welcome back to the Voices of Middle-earth podcast. I'm your host, Nolan Cleland, and I'm joined by Elijah Reiser. Elijah, how you doing?
Good, Nolan. How are you doing?
I'm doing great. This is our second episode in our new podcast, so make sure you hit that subscribe button and stay updated. So, today we're talking about the villains of J.R.R. Tolkien. So when you think of like villains in Tolkien, what do you like immediately comes to mind to you?
Uh, One of the main people that come to my mind is Sauron and,
Yeah,
kind of just orcs.
right. Yeah, orcs are they're pretty evil.
Yeah,
What comes to my mind is usually the orcs, like you said, and I think of Morgoth. I think of the
yeah,
Witch King.
yeah.
All those, yeah. Sometimes Gollum too, because he could be
Uh,
considered. He's a villain.
yeah, he is.
Yeah, he kind of redeems himself, but that doesn't mean that he didn't do some pretty bad things.
Yeah.
Yeah, so let's get into it. When you hear villains of J.R.R. Tolkien, one of the first things that might pop into your head is maybe Sauron, like we were talking about, or orcs, like we were talking about. Uh, but anyway, we will be discussing some villains of Tolkien. Of course, there are lots of villains in The Lord of the Rings, or in The Hobbit, or in other Tolkien-related books. So we'll try to start with some of the basics. So, in our podcast today, our first villains are the Nazgul. These ghoulish riders seem to be plucked right out of a nightmare. And I'm sure people who have watched Peter Jackson's adaptations probably have had nightmares because
Oh,
he made
yes.
them. Peter Jackson was a horror director before he directed the Lord of the Rings trilogy, and he knew how to do horror. So, yeah, they're terrifying.
Yeah, I know what you mean.
Yeah. Their shadowy appearance, eerie whispers, and affinity for skewing targets. As Sauron's foremost servants, the Nazgul, or ringwraiths, as they are also called, are the foes that almost all the main characters face at one time or another.
Okay, next, moving on to Sauron. Sauron is a title character and the main antagonist of J.R.R. Tolkien's The Lord of the Rings, where he rules the land of Mordor. He has the ambition of ruling the whole of Middle-earth, using the power of One Ring, which he has lost and seeks to recapture. A lot of people ask, who is Sauron? Throughout the years, Sauron has taken on many roles and gone by many names. He has the unanimous Lord of the Rings, the Dark Lord. His other names have included Mehran, Anatar, Artano, Gorthar, and Zogar. He's also identified as the Necromancer in The Hobbit. We would like to talk more about this topic, but unfortunately we have to move on.
Yep, we have to keep these episodes shorter,
Yeah,
We would probably talk for 6 hours about each of these points if we had the
yeah.
chance, but we don't. So let's move on to Morgoth. Morgoth was the first Dark Lord, and Sauron was his most loyal servant in the First Age. While the two were allies, though their goals were different. Morgoth sought to destroy Middle-earth, which Sauron sought to control. The character is also briefly mentioned in The Lord of the Rings. In the First Age, Morgoth was defeated by the host of the Valar in the War of Wrath, marking the end of the First Age in his rule in Middle-earth.
Saruman, also known as Saruman the White, was the first of the Astari wizards, the emissaries of the Valar sent to Middle-earth in the Third Age to help the free peoples of the world to counter Sauron. He was originally the chief of the Astari and was head of the White Council, that for a time opposed to the Dark Lord. But by the late Third Age, Saruman, overcame by the lust for power, betrayed his allies and swore fealty to Sauron, becoming one of his greatest servants. The wizard, however, plotted to betray his new master, as well as usurp his place as ruler of Middle-earth, or at least stand at his right hand. In the War of the Ring, Saruman marshaled an army at Isengard to both conquer Rohan at Sauron's behest and try to reclaim the One Ring for himself.
Yeah, that's a great side story, to the main story of Lord of the Rings. It's
Yeah,
very interesting.
yeah, it is.
So we're moving on to our last villain of the day. We can't talk about all of them because his works are so vast, and
Yeah.
yeah, but we're moving on finally to Shelob. Shelob is the fictional monster in the form of a giant spider from J.R.R. Tolkien's The Lord of the Rings. Her lair lies in Cirith Ungol, the Pass of the Spider, leading into Mordor. Okay, so I just a little side note here. So when Frodo asks Faramir about the pass of Cirith Ungol. Why did Faramir not just tell Frodo, "Hey, it means the pass of the spider. A giant spider works there. Don't go there. Don't listen to Gollum." It's just interesting, you know.
I know,
People have
right?
talked people have talked about that before, and it's interesting. Maybe Faramir didn't know the language. Maybe he
Yeah.
didn't know that it meant pass of the spider. I don't know.
Yeah, you don't really know that, you know?
Yeah, yeah, but regardless, the creature Gollum deliberately leads the Hobbit protagonist Frodo there in hopes of recovering the One Ring by letting Shelob attack Frodo. The plan is foiled when Samwise Gamgee temporarily blinds Shelob with the Phial of Galadriel, and then severely wounds her with Frodo's elvish sword Sting. Yeah, that's another. I don't want to keep mentioning the movies because this is technically like a Tolkien podcast, but that's another
Yeah.
scene they got. They really did it good in the movies.
Yeah, they
You know?
they did. They did. Yeah.
Yeah, yeah. So yeah, that's all we got for you today. Make sure to like and subscribe and share this podcast with your friends. Yeah, that'll wrap it up for the second episode of Voices of Middle Earth. May the light shine on your swords.